Now, Israel's Supreme Court has backed a prisoner swap with Hamas, rejecting petitions against freeing more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners in exchange for the captured soldier Gilad Shalit. The exchange of the soldier who was captured by Hamas in 2006 and the Palestinian prisoners is expected to start later this morning. Nabila Ramdani is a journalist who specialises in the Middle East, and Toby Green is a political analyst specialising in Israel and the Middle East, and they join us now. Hello to you both.
Hello, good evening.
Hi. Toby, first of all, how is this swap being seen in Israel?
In agreeing to this deal, the Israeli government and the Israeli people have been forced to confront a very difficult dilemma. On the one hand, there is an overwhelming desire to bring home Gilad Shalit, a soldier who was taken captive over 5.5 years ago, has been held without any access to the Red Cross or without any contact with his family. On the other hand, it's a very painful price that Israel is having to pay in releasing over 1,000 prisoners to bring Shalit home. Of the 477 Palestinian prisoners that will be released tomorrow, nearly 300 of them are serving life sentences for their role in terror attacks. And Israelis remember very clearly those terror attacks. And the focus today in Israel has been on the Supreme Court, as your news report mentioned, where families of victims of those terror attacks have been objecting to the release of the terrorists that are responsible for the murder of their loved ones, and you can understand how distressing that has been.
Yeah, Nabila Ramdani, Israel is certainly having to pay a huge price, isn't it, to get this soldier back?
I would slightly disagree. I mean, according to a poll on Monday, the deal is backed by 79% of the public in Israel. So, there's an overwhelming majority in Israel which, sees the deal as a victory for Israel. And then, on both sides, it's a win-win situation. It is also enjoyed by the widespread support amongst Palestinians, the fact that this exchange is going ahead. And there will be celebrations, in both in Israel and in Gaza City tomorrow.
Well, both sides do have something to celebrate, but you say a win-win. Isn't it an encouragement to other groups now that maybe kidnapping an Israeli soldier is something to be encouraged because of the result?
No, I don't believe so. I think some Israelis, although a pretty small minority, complain that this lopsided deal entails being soft on terrorists, and certainly families of victims of previous acts of terrorism are particularly angry about what's going on. But some Palestinians will also be angry too by the suggestion that one Israeli soldier is worth 1,000 plus Palestinians. But again, this kind of complaint will seem pretty academic to the families and friends of the hundreds returning home.
Toby Green, negotiation in this instance seems to have worked. Does this move the process, the peace process, on at all, on any level?
Unfortunately, I don't think it does. It's important to be aware that the Palestinians are divided. The organisation, the group with which Israel has done this deal is Hamas. It's extreme Islamist group which controls the Gaza Strip. They are fierce rivals with the Palestinian Authority, which is in the West Bank. The peace process, which the international community has been attempting to revive, is really between Israel and the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, and not with Hamas, which objects in principle to the peace process with Israel. So really this is actually quite damaging for the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, because it's a success for Hamas, and these two Palestinian factions are fierce rivals with one another. So if anything, it's likely to make the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas more defensive and even less likely to re-enter negotiations with Israel. I would just challenge one of the things that Nabila said. I mean, from my perspective, I'm based in Israel. I don't think Israelis see this as a victory for them. I mean, it's absolutely correct that most Israelis do support this deal by the sorts of majorities that you mentioned, but they do so with reluctance and with regret. What we'll see tomorrow on our television screens is terrorists that are responsible for the murder of hundreds of Israelis being welcomed as heroes in Gaza and in the West Bank, and that won't feel like a victory in Israel, I can assure you.
Nabila?
Well, I think, you can't dispute, this overwhelming figure, 79% of the public, that is saying something. Of course, as I said, there is a sense as well, as Toby mentioned, that that there is a complaint by a pretty small minority on the Israeli side, but in the end it's part of the Arab-Israeli conflict. So, but to go back to your questions about how things are moving on from that, and as the way I see it, and from what we're seeing on the ground as well, this is very much an encouragement to future negotiations between Israel and indeed the Palestinian Authority, but also Hamas. It's certainly a great diplomatic triumph for Hamas, and as Toby said, yes, it does weaken the position of Fatah, but at the same time it also shows that both sides, Israel and indeed Hamas, have shown an awful lot of pragmatism, and that is very encouraging.
All right, and that exchange is expected to start, as I've already said, in the morning. You'll hear all of that here on 5 Live. Thank you very much to Nabila and Toby. You're listening to Tony Livesey. It's 14 minutes past 12.